And now let's start the action with round number 1.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Combat Sports Live. We're in round number 1. The action, we're going to be talking about UFC 113 and some fights that we've got coming up this weekend on Showtime with Strikeforce. But recapping what we were just talking about, Charles, our buddy Kimbo. Yeah, you were just talking about his one side is shaved and the other side is not shaved, which I think is pretty cool.
I'm not the big tattoo guy, as you can tell, so I don't really know what's protocol. But I just thought it looked a little weird having one side hairy and one side bald. Obviously, you've seen over the past few weeks, I don't get the whole Kimbo Slice thing. But obviously, he's trained hard. He's gone farther than what the UFC thought he would. They clearly said, we never thought he'd get this far. And he did. So, to his credit, he came in. He met a guy that was tougher that night than he was. Mitrione's tough as nails. You can say what you want to say about him, but he stood in front of him, and he stopped him. He stuffed him. He didn't just send him home for the night.
Yeah.
He sent him out of the UFC for good. So I cannot wait to hear Mitrione call in, because this is going to be a great interview.
I think so, too. I mean, I think that Mitrione, a lot of people talk a lot of stuff about Mitrione, how he's this or he's that. I had a chance to interview him a month and a half, maybe a couple months ago when they first announced the Kimbo fight. I was interviewing him for a publication talking about him moving his camp to Duke Roufus's camp. Duke Roufus, as a lot of people know, is one of the top striking coaches in the game. Has produced guys like Pat Barry and Alan Belcher, who we saw do very well against Patrick Cote. But, my impression of Mitrione is that the guy is a little bit misunderstood. He was the perfect guy to be the anti-Kimbo because of the reach, his ability to move. I don't think really, Kimbo ever really had a shot.
No, and for Matt to be sitting at 2-0 now with a big public win, so to speak. I don't know inside the UFC what people really think, but basically in the public eye, this guy's 2-0 with a big win. And his stock is off the charts.
Right.
Because he's going to fit right into potential championship fights a whole lot earlier than what other guys have had the opportunity to do, because he beat Kimbo in his second fight. He didn't just beat him, he beat him down.
Yeah, and that's what I think he needed to do, was beat him in dramatic, lopsided fashion.
Absolutely.
To be accepted as a contender in the UFC. He went out there and did exactly what he was supposed to do.
Talking about drama, what do you think about the Josh Koscheck Paul Daly scenario? I mean, it was
are we talking about the dramatic Oscar-winning performance?
The ghost knee or the foul after the fight?
I mean, everything from top to bottom of that fight was just crazy. I mean, you got villain versus villain. Koscheck is a polarizing figure in the UFC. You love him or you hate him, or you hate to love him. I mean, I always talk about UFC like being a comic book universe where for it to be intriguing and be entertaining, you have to have villains and you have to have heroes. And of course, the promoters set him up that way. They steer the media that way. But I don't think Koscheck needs a whole lot of help. The guy is cocky, he's brash,
and he's very intelligent and articulate. If you turn the volume down on your television set, you wouldn't figure how intelligent this guy is just on the way he looks. Coming out with the hair and some of the cockiness, the guy's sharp. His skills are sharp, mind is sharp. He totally dominated Paul Daly.
Yeah.
And Paul Daly's a very talented striker.
When you put someone like Paul Daly against a Dustin Hazlett, who is a great fighter but had no answer for those
big
hands.
Heavy hands.
And he does. I mean, Daly has incredible hands. But it takes more than that to be a contender in the UFC. That's what people have got to understand. If you don't have wrestling, you don't have jiu-jitsu, you don't have Muay Thai, hands, okay, you can be a professional boxer.
And Koscheck's been around that block, coming from the wrestling background that he had. He's been around to learn what's going to work and what's not, and he's refined his game. I really am excited about what's next for him, the supposed fight with GSP, because I really think that's going to be a better fight than the first one. I think he's gotten so much more experience, and he's battle-tested, and he's ready now, and he just, other than the drama with the ghost knee, it was a great night.
I think so too. And speaking of his fight with GSP, the UFC Media Machine has confirmed that Josh Koscheck will be on The Ultimate Fighter as a coach, facing off against George St. Pierre as a coach. So after this season of The Ultimate Fighter, you roll right into Koscheck versus GSP on a season of The Ultimate Fighter, which will, of course, end with them squaring off for a second time. So you've got a lot of stuff going on with that. What do you think would happen? Forget about what's going to happen on the show, because I'm sure it's going to be a lot of drama.
It's going to be hard to predict which one gets to impose their will. George St. Pierre, obviously, is just so well-rounded. I think wherever the fight goes, because he's comfortable.
I think so.
If Koscheck can come in and do to GSP what GSP normally does to their opponents, which is take them down and smother them, just like he did to Daly. He took him down, he smothered him, he pounded him, he beat on him, he kept him out of doing what he wants to do. It's almost going to be those guys fighting each other, some similar styles that you just don't know who's going to be more prepared that night or who's going to inflict their will.
When you talk about a rematch like that or a matchup like that, you kind of have to go with the guy that has been the most consistent. And George St. Pierre is such a high, his bar is so high, it's like you almost have to think Koscheck is such the underdog.
And GSP's been able to avoid any of these distractions. Avoided distractions that cause lack of preparation, lack of being ready. Maybe, just maybe, this time out with the show The Ultimate Fighter, and he's going to be a coach on that. Maybe it gets him off track. Maybe it gets him out of his normal preparation for a fight. I don't know. I can tell you, in order to beat GSP, you're going to have to hope something like that happens because he avoids distractions, avoids problems, comes in on point, does his job, fulfills the game plan, and takes the belt back home.
And that's what makes him a world champion. We'll talk a little bit more about that, Charles. We're running out of time with this round. We're going to be coming back with round number 2, ladies and gentlemen. Stick around for Combat Sports Live.